Sovereign wealth, it's here! No longer a meme. Two of the largest funds in the UAE aren't selling. In fact, they're buying Bitcoin at a time when there's blood in the streets. Let's go to today's big story. Over to the headlines. This one from Bloomberg, quote, Abu Dhabi funds add to Bitcoin bets despite crypto rout. The name we want to keep in mind here, Mubadala Investment Company. So Mubadala increased its IBIT holdings by 46% in Q4, up to 12.7 million shares from 8.7 million in Q3. Want to hone in on a central theme to Bloomberg's story is that this buying took place while IBIT was down more than 23% in Q4. This led the media outlet to conclude the accumulation could have happened into weakness rather than performance chasing strength. So Mubadala is sending a strong sign, validation here. They're buying when Bitcoin prices are depressed. We have to conclude they expect Bitcoin to rise again. The next player in this story is the Abu Dhabi Investment Council, the ADIC. They're looking to Bitcoin as a long-term diversification strategy. And here's the key quote, as a store of value similar to gold. So as the global context becomes that nations and central banks are moving away from the dollar to gold, but yet they're not ready to accept Bitcoin here. This is why Mubadala and the ADIC and what they're doing is such a big story on the global stage. They are providing the initial validation that our thesis as Bitcoiners is correct. The second part of the story is that there's in fact another Abu Dhabi Investment Council subsidiary that's been buying Bitcoin. So Al Warda Investments also increased its IBIT stake in Q4 up to 8.2 million shares from 7.9 in Q3. This increase is notable because Al Warda has traditionally focused on private investments. They're here coming out of the box to invest in Bitcoin. So combined, Mubadala and ADIC entities and Al Warda, they now own over 20 million IBIT shares worth more than 1.1 billion at peak market prices. But again, a small drop in the bucket compared to what we expect from sovereign wealth as the Bitcoin thesis gets validated. And of course, we always love to end our shows with a bit of history, right? The Bitcoin historian, myself, a journalist in the space for over 12 years. Here's a story from 2017, authored by myself. The headline, 2020 Vision, Why Startups Believe Blockchain Will Go Live in Dubai. So, some context. You might remember from 2015 and 2016, the meme, blockchain, not Bitcoin. Here, global banks were sending the signal that they saw distributed ledger technology as the real revolution behind Bitcoin, the blockchain, not Bitcoin. So banks were essentially saying, hey, we're going to set up the networks of the future. We don't need this pesky decentralized digital network where any anonymous miner can plug in and validate transactions. We're going to replace it with something different. They invested over $1 billion in DLT startups, including R3 and others, and they convinced a lot of national entities to get involved. Here we see in Dubai. How involved were they? Well, they had a whole 2020 initiative. They were going to put every public record on the blockchain. Now we know this never materialized. So a bit of a regional context here, right? You have one of the biggest players involved in blockchain, not Bitcoin, turning and realizing the value of Bitcoin. We love to see it. And of course, we expect more nations to wake up. And if you're just waking up to your security, Trezor.io, take a look, upgrade your security. You want to be ready for what's coming when sovereign wealth enters the market. This has been the Bitcoin Historian. We'll be back tomorrow.
Rage, power, weakest, foes, money, driven, major, fraud, breathless, body, diamond, wanna be it, wanna feel it.